We're live. Happy Friday. Welcome back to the Unnamed Ticket Time Machine LinkedIn Live show. Today, it's a pleasure to have Darryll Stinson, former Division I athlete with Central Michigan and founder of Second Chance Athletes. Darryll, welcome to the show. How's everything going today?
Living my best life over here in Metro Atlanta, man.
So Atlanta's got a lot of excitement in Atlanta and Georgia, state of Georgia, coming up in the next couple of weeks. Is it about the same as it was right before November? Is it more? Is it less?
There's always something going on in the ATL, man. So if it's not the election, it's entertainment, it's movie, it's Tyler Perry Studios. I mean, this is the place to be, man.
Have you seen the studios?
I have not. I want to though. I want to. Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna get into a bunch of stuff today. Darryll I'll let him talk. Let's talk to us a little bit about Second Chance Athletes. Maybe start with your story, how you got there, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'm over here sharing your live right now. I'm originally from Jackson, Michigan, and it's home of Tony Dungy, and grew up wanting to be a professional athlete, and those dreams came to an end. I know we'll get into that story a little bit more, but when that came to an end, I developed an opioid addiction and attempted suicide multiple times, had a faith conversion in a psychiatric unit, and turned my life around and started speaking and doing marketing, copywriting, and now leading Second Chance Athletes and being a mental health advocate and connecting with people like you to do some good in the world.
Yeah. So where to start? Because there's a lot of, your story is great. There's a lot of aspects of the story that I think are interesting. Let's just start out with, I'm always fascinated by athletics and athletes and, what makes someone a Division I and how do you get where you're going. Let's just talk about the athletic side of it. How did you get into it? Who was your mentor? What got you into football?
Yeah.
A little bit about the journey there.
Yeah, so my dad was a Division I athlete. He was a really good athlete. Would have went pro and probably did some crazy things in the league. If he didn't hurt his knee playing basketball, he played football as well at CMU actually. And you can look him up. I mean, he was a beast.
Was the basketball accident like for recreation or was it part of
recreation? That's what sucks the most. So he was 6'2", safety. He hit like a brick house and he ran a 4.3, and man, his high jump in high school was like 6'11". He was freaking nature, and this was in the 80s. So I mean, that was like whoa then, and was a super beast. And he's playing intramural basketball and trying to show off dunking, and they told him like you can't actually like hang on the rim or anything. And so he tries to do like the rock the cradle dunk and then like just kind of drop it lightly in the rim just to show everybody that he could do it, and landed wrong on somebody and blew his ACL. And that was pretty much it. He rehabbed a little bit, but he just couldn't come back from it. And he was closer to the end than I was. I got hurt my freshman year. He got hurt junior year. So that was just when he could get letters from the NFL. And his coach comes and brings him a whole box of NFL letters and says, I wasn't able to give this to you to the end of the season, but I thought you would want to know.
Yeah.
And it was all these NFL teams that wanted to invite him out to try out for the team and all this stuff. So, man, I wanted to finish what Dad started and make it to where he didn't make it to, and fulfill his legacy and continue our legacy as a family full of athletes. And same thing happened to me. I wasn't playing recreation ball, but got hurt my freshman year, man. And so, I mean, growing up, it was always just want to be like Dad. I had a lot of coaches, a lot of mentors. No one in particular that I would, give credit to my athletic success other than my father. He did a lot of work with me. And really more than like the drills and all that, it was the mindset of really success and high standards. My dad had a zero tolerance for excuses. He's very militant. And even after he got done playing football, he went and was a drill sergeant at a boot camp in Chelsea, Michigan. So, I mean, there was just like, if you fall 2 inches short, there was like no reason why you should do that. I mean, I would score 20 points in the basketball game. He would tell me how I could have scored 30. It was just never good enough. And there was a bad side of that, but the good was that I was never satisfied. I was always reaching to be better. And that's what made me successful as an athlete and one of the best competitors on my team. So that's what led to my success, man.
Was there a coach, and you said not football wise, but was there a coach who, looking back now, kind of really prepared you for this part of your life and gave you the lessons? Or is it all just football?
Nah, man. No. I don't think there was a coach who thought I wouldn't play professionally. It was pretty obvious, 6'5" guy, fast, agile. It didn't matter if I was going to.
Even preparing you for the NFL, they gave you wisdom and knowledge and information that has helped you now. Nope. In non-sport with nothing.
I don't know. I think everybody was just like amazed at my athletic ability, and I was already kind of a smart guy. I wasn't like one of those guys that didn't have his head on straight for the most part. I mean, I lived a secret life, but I was well spoken. I wasn't like some other knuckleheads on the team, and so I didn't think they were worried about me to feel like they need to pull me aside, like, let me teach you something about life, and so I've always been a very wise kid. With the exception of, some of my lifestyle I live, but yeah. Mm-hmm. I agree, Meredith. Some more sports psychologists should be involved at the youth sports level. Absolutely.
Yeah. At every level, psychologists at every level.
Absolutely. Wholeheartedly agree.
I mean, music is a music sport. They're all the stories about the people who, they need help and they don't get it. They don't know that they need help. Because they're young and they think that they're invincible and all that. So great comment. What team did you have a team in mind that you wanted to play for? Was it hometown Lions or?
So no, never wanted to play for the Lions. Hated the Lions all my life. Was so happy when I moved to Georgia because I didn't feel obligated to cheer for them anymore, and I immediately started cheering for the Falcons. And I have no shame in that. I've spent too many Thanksgivings where Lions let me down.
Yeah.
And but you can't tell anyone this. Growing up, I always wanted to play football and basketball, so I wanted to be a two-sport athlete for Michigan State University.
Wow.
Yeah, and they did recruit me. They offered me a football scholarship, but it was a gray shirt, where you start like the following semester. Yeah. And I didn't want to wait to start school because I didn't want to get in trouble, and so. But looking back, I was like, that was the dumbest thing ever. And they were recruiting me for basketball, but it was like between me and Draymond Green, and they were like, Draymond's, a little bit more experienced, and his team actually went to. I don't know if they won the finals that year, but I know they went to the finals, and we got knocked out early in the playoffs. So they were like, we're gonna, bet on Draymond, but if you, accept your football scholarship, you can walk on to the basketball team. And I was like, nah, I'm straight. So I went to Central to play both football and basketball.
The Chippewas, they got a nice little program there too, right?
Oh, yeah. And then we beat Michigan State, by the way. Just got to throw that out there.
That's big revenge.
Revenge.
Right. So your career ends, and now what happens?
Well, let me go there for a second because it wasn't as clean. So I got hurt at the end of my freshman year. Had to have emergency back surgery because I had a pinched nerve that was creating atrophy in my left leg. And if I didn't have emergency surgery, my left leg was going to go paralyzed. That should have been the end of my career. Severe back surgery. I already had a lot of muscle damage. But since sports was my identity, I couldn't let it go. And I always say this, when your work is your identity, you make poor decisions. And so I begged the coaches to let me come back on the field and play, and convinced them to allow me to sign a liability waiver so that they wouldn't be liable for my injury or death. And then the way I always say this part of the story is I was supposed to be zero contact for the first 6 months, and I wasn't supposed to be allowed to play within the first year, but I was starting within 6 months after my surgery. And really 3 months if you think like, I was already running reps with the ones in practice. So the level of discipline I put my body through, the level of painkillers I was taking to numb my pain to play the game. I was manipulating the healthcare system, getting multiple epidural shots in my back, nerve killings, chiropractic work, anything I could do to numb my pain to continue to play the game of football. And I always say it this way, that me hurt was better than the next guy fully healthy. So I was making, some plays on the field, but you could tell I was clearly in pain. Like if you watch any of my film, you could see me kind of avoiding contact and running with a limp. And you can see this guy's like not fully healthy, but he's actually exciting to watch because he's this big guy chasing down running backs. So going into my senior year, my pain was just getting intolerable. I was taking more and more painkillers, and I was taking so many opioids that it was thinning my blood to the point where every time I made contact on the field, my nose would bleed. And so coaches would be like, man, what's going on with Stents, man? Why is he having all these nosebleeds, man? Is he coming to the training room? And then I'm starting to develop this permanent hunch in my back, and I can't hide it. And finally, after one game, they didn't play me a lot, and I was super pissed because we were getting our butts kicked. And they pulled me in the locker room afterwards, and they said, this is it. We can't watch you do this to yourself anymore. You're going to kill yourself. This is my junior year going into my senior year. And it was like the second to last game or so. I think it was against Ball State of that season. And I was pissed. I felt like because in my mind, once I got to the NFL, I was going to get this big contract. I was going to get drafted first round. And then I was going to get some famous, expensive doctor that was going to fix my back. And then I was going to wow everybody. And then I was going to go play in the NBA and break records on both sides of the equation. And all this was going to happen, And it didn't. And they were taking that from me, and they didn't believe in me. And I was like, y'all said I wouldn't be able to come back from the first injury. So how you going to tell me I can't come back from, my current physical injury? And so they weren't taking it. And deep down inside, I knew there's probably no way. And so I was frustrated, man. And that began this whole journey of depression.
Yeah. Did you know right away?
Let me see.
Because there's a lot of people who say, they use the word depression and I'm depressed when they might really just be sad or upset.
Yeah.
And if you are sad or you have a moment, that's fine too. I had a really small one, and then it, later on it became big, but it's hard. The most important part is actually recognizing that it's an issue, and that's when you can go and try and get help instead of just let me try and sleep it off or.
I get asked this question a lot, and to me, man, here's the thing. It's like, okay, when should you seek professional help is one of the questions I get. And I always tell people, when's the best time to treat cancer? It's when you spot it. Yeah. And so, I'm a big component of man, whether you call it clinical depression or mental illness or whatever, everyone needs somebody to talk to.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So, we got to take the stigma out of mental health. And if you're seeing a counselor, doesn't mean you're whacked out or anything like that. It's just how to live mentally healthy, And so, I noticed that I was having some depressive. It was really when I had my first injury, and I was just using sports to mask all of that stuff. So I didn't have to deal with any of it because I would just go hit people and run fast and burn off all of that energy. But then when I didn't have that outlet anymore, it was just me and old dark thoughts, and I didn't know how to deal with it. I had no mental health practices. I didn't journal. I didn't have a counselor. So I just imploded and developed self-hatred. Didn't think I had identity, purpose beyond sports. So, I don't know if there's a moment where I'm I'm depressed now. I just think that I was just delaying wrath because I wasn't taking mental inventory because sports was my outlet.
Okay. And so you eventually got to a darker place before you sought the help, right?
Yeah, I actually never sought help. I kind of tossed it around. I would make semi remarks about being down or whatever, but because I was such a charismatic guy and a leader, nobody really took note of it. They weren't something's wrong with them. They were just oh, okay, he's just having a tough time, missing sports. But I was never really truly transparent. And honestly, it made it worse because I was see, they really don't care about my depression. They don't care. That was my mentality then. I realize now, and I teach this to people, as I said, you can't expect people to cure and treat what you won't show them.
Yeah.
So you got to give them the real thoughts. Me saying how someone responds to me saying, man, I'm having a rough day is way different to how somebody would have responded if I was like, yo, I'm having thoughts about taking my life.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? But I would never say that. And so I always say vulnerability is a Batman signal for love. You've got to be more vulnerable so that you can let people know that you need more love. But I didn't do that. So, you know, I started to have those thoughts, and I started to make little small attempts, you know, kind of mixing my opioid pills with alcohol. And, you know, when I would throw out these comments about how depressed I would feel and nobody would respond, I was like, I knew nobody cared about me.
Yeah. So I want to expand on that and talk a little bit about that, because that's a very important piece, because, you know, even before I had my issues, I have a friend who was posting stuff on Facebook, and I wrote out to him, hey, are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
You can't post that stuff on Facebook.
Yeah.
You know, let's talk. Call me anytime, whatever you need. And it was basically, you know, he lost a girl, and he had struggle finding work, had some financial issues because of it. He felt like no one wanted to help him. Although, I mean, and what happened was, I heard he had died, and I knew it. You know, immediately I knew he took his own life, and it killed me, because I go back now and I look at my messages to him, and it's like, dude, let me help you. Let's talk. And so there's two aspects to that. Like, hey, no one's responding to my cries for help. And then even when someone does respond, you have to actually be able to let people help you. And I see it now on Twitter. Anytime I see something like that, I don't care if I know you or not, I'm sending you a private message, say, hey, you know, what's going on? How can I help? You know, because, you know, there's the two aspects of that. So then they have to take the help. And I find that most people won't take the help, but they know they need it. So it's, I mean, I don't know. How do we get to the people? Because you can't force someone to.
Mission we fight, man.
Yeah.
And if you find that solution, let me know. I think being aware. I did a mental health challenge called We Are One with Chris Gronkowski and the Ice Shaker brand, Write One Line Journal, and the Athlete Network. And what we were doing, we were giving away a brand new iPhone, a leather journal, and an ice shaker. And it was called Write One Line, Take One Step, Make One Call. And we're trying to get people in this habit of being proactive versus reactive. And so if you just, you know, write one line, which is journal, if you take one step, which is physical activity, if you make one call, which is check on people you love, I mean, that's the recipe, right? And I think a lot of young boys are putting football due to trauma they experience football covers the trauma that has, unfortunately, it shows up with injury or when life choice needs to be made, or worse, they make it to the NFL and are behaviorally problematic. Yeah, that definitely sounds like the knowledge of a psychologist. And I so agree with you. In fact, you know, I talk a little bit about that in my book, Who Am I After Sports? I didn't give it enough attention because it needed another book. and I was like trying not to open up too many cans. I was trying to stay focused on identity and purpose. But my writer was like, maybe you should just do like some bonus chapters at the end or something. And I didn't want to dilute it and try to make the book about too much stuff. But I so agree with what Meredith is saying, that, you know, a lot of people don't have this good upbringing, and football becomes this outlet, and they're underdeveloped. You know, they get influenced too early, ego too early, money too early, and they never really had an opportunity to just be. And yeah, when you get into fatherlessness and the statistics of the amount of athletes who didn't have emotionally present fathers in their home, they might have been physically present but not emotionally present. I mean, it makes sense. And this is not just males, this is females as well. So anyways, where was I at?
You were lucky, unlucky, because not treating it brought you to, you know, you tell it better than I can.
No, absolutely, man. Yeah. So my point is, I never told anybody, and I wasn't even doing social media posts, and so it was a shock to everybody when, you know, I was in the psychiatric unit, and so, you know, I don't know how, you know, I don't say transparent how much we want to go there, but you know, one thing leads to another. You know, it starts off with thoughts. of, hey, what would happen if I wasn't here? And then it goes to, well, nobody really cares if I wasn't here. Well, there are people that care about me. Well, they don't really know me, because if they really knew me, they wouldn't really care about me. And I was just validating that. And then at the same time, I had a girlfriend who I was dating for 4.5 years and was planning to marry, and she left me and got engaged to another man. And I found that out when I was sitting in my car one day and contemplating suicide. So I was doing drugs, and then I was thinking about going and driving off the side of the road. And I call her to confide in her, and I go, "Hey, sweetie, I'm really struggling." And she's like, "Oh, it's okay, Darryll." And she's calling me by my first name, and I'm like, "Why is she calling me Darryll? Like, why is she not saying sweetheart or whatever?" Long story short, found out that she was actually at the guy's house at the time, and that's why she wouldn't leave and come be with me. And so I was like, my girlfriend left me, football left me, nobody really knows who I am. The world would just be better if I wasn't here. And the pain of living was so unbearable that I would rather die to get out of it. And that led to more serious attempts. So instead of taking a couple pills and drinking a little bit of alcohol, take a lot of pills, drink a lot of alcohol. I remember one time downing a whole fifth of alcohol, getting in the car and just being like, I just hope that I pass out and go into oncoming traffic and just never wake up again.
I mean, that's dangerous for everyone else too, and not just yourself, which is people don't realize some of the actions that you're taking, and it's out of your control because you're not even thinking about that. You're just thinking about how can I end my own life, and something like that has probably ended other people's lives. So again, very lucky that there was no damage to anyone else.
Absolutely, man. And we heard those horror stories. I know a family whose son committed suicide, and she had told us confidentially that he had mentioned killing the whole family.
Yeah, it's happened.
And and it's just like, I think when you're just reckless and you're hurt people, you're not thinking rationally. You're just trying to get out of your pain, and you don't care what you got to do to make that happen. Not saying it's right, but that's the reality.
Yeah, and you go in the news, there's a whole conversation about, these mass shooters and all. I mean, you can't be a mass shooter and not have some type of mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
Something going on because that's not the behavior of someone who's mentally well. Especially when it's not, spur of the moment. These are all planned things.
Right.
So it's just, there's all kinds of, it's not just athletes, it's everyone needs help, and we got to find a way to help them.
Right. Yeah. You're hitting the nail on the head, man. And, that's why I appreciate the work you're doing to create awareness, to normalize the conversation. It's one thing. I was talking to somebody who struggles with depression earlier this week because my second TEDx talk is coming out this weekend and it's actually called Purpose: A Remedy to Depression. And I was, talking to him about creating some mental health content because I know people are going to, reach out because they see this TEDx talk, and I don't want to leave them hanging or anything. So we know the answer is like, hey, you're not alone, right? Like that helps a lot. But even though we say that, people still feel like they're alone. And I was like, so I asked him, I said, what would help you feel like you're not alone? And he was like, it'll have to be somebody who's in the same exact situation as I am. So he's looking for a, same here, me too type of thing. Yeah. And I was like, okay. So I just recorded this week a bunch of videos, mental health content. And it was just me just talking about those moments in my life that led to depression spirals. The rejection from the girlfriend, the failure from football, the time where I set out to achieve a goal and I didn't make it, the time where, I was made fun of in public, just all of these moments where it causes you to question your identity and question whether or not you are worth existing or not. And so it's a bunch of Me Too comments. And my hope is that, people can relate and they'll get that same message just delivered in a different package.
Well, look what Meredith is saying. I mean, this is what happens when you share your story like this. It happened to me when I shared it on Facebook and had people reaching out. It's people, they feel better when they hear other people talk about it, and it hopefully it'll let other people. The same thing with rape and the whole Me Too. Once you hear other people say it, and the thing about it is, once you say it once, it's like you're never going to be afraid to talk about it again.
Yeah.
Because no one's going to care.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way that the way that you think they're going to care in a negative way. So one more question, and then I want to talk about Frank. Thanks, Frankie. One more question, then we'll talk about how the next point that happened. But do you think that there's anything that you could have done? Like, let's say you didn't start taking the pills and you went to normal rehab time. Would you have been able to move on and continue on and play football and have a different life, or was it just whatever happened to you? There was no coming back to it from it.
So I want to make sure I understand. Are you asking would I have been able to still play football, or are you asking would I'm not going down the depression route?
Not on that path, both almost.
Okay, so I'll answer each one individually because those are two different cases for me. So for athletics, I wholeheartedly, like, there's no convincing me that if you would have gave me 6 to 7 months to actually rehab, that I wouldn't be like one of the best NFL players right now. So I wholeheartedly believe that without even flinching.
Okay.
And so I just felt like that was more on my rehabilitation process and nothing really to do with my emotional or mental health.
Right. But you pushed that, you pushed that and other people enabled you. They didn't push you and enable you, correct?
No. They're definitely not at fault. They didn't want me to play at all.
Right.
so they were ready to cash me in. And so if I knew what I knew now, I would have just, took a sabbatical for a year and then came back. But I wanted to prove them right then that I could do it then. Yeah. And so anyways, but in terms of my mental and emotional health, yes, I wouldn't be doing the work that I'm doing today if I didn't feel like it's preventable. Now, there's some mental illness that I don't know how we cure or treat that, especially the more severe it is. I've been in the psychiatric unit twice, and I've seen some people that were really mentally ill, and I looked and said, I don't know how to deal with that.
I think what do you think about this? The more people that are really mentally ill at that level, I would say that more than 50% of those people are not treated at all. They're just walking around with no help.
I don't know. I haven't done the
number.
I haven't done the research to really speak to it. I will say that it's a. I know there's always people out there doing great work. So I know somewhere across the world there are people who are researching, looking for solutions, and I so believe in our ability to grow as humanity to figure out a way to integrate them into society or cure or remedy whatever we have to do to live healthy and whole and connected lives. But I haven't done the research to really know if there's a level where it's just give up or if there's people that just aren't being served. So I really can't speak authentically to that.
That's more of an eye test for me. I mean, I don't have any numbers to back.
Yeah, I can tell you from the psych units that I went to. I mean, they're doing the best they can. I don't
people don't have access to it. And the other thing is probably, no one's going around saying, hey, I was in the psych ward. So that's part of the reason why you don't hear, unless the famous people who, have to get treated. So that's probably another thing. Let's talk about you mentioned the psych ward. Let's talk about that part of the journey. Yeah, listen, it's fascinating because of how you took the help that you got and made it to what it is today. There's plenty of people who just get help and they go out and they go back to life and they're better, but they didn't have like a transformation or like an aha moment.
I feel like I had the closest thing to a near-death experience without actually being. I mean, I guess it was an attempt at suicide, but
you had near-death experience.
I think the fact that I actually tried to end it was and I always say this now, I'm living a life that I tried to end, and I have extreme gratitude for that. But so leading up to it, same thing. My girlfriend wouldn't come back and be with me. She was convinced she was going to stay with this other guy. I couldn't beg her back. I couldn't cheat my way to get her back or anything like that. She wasn't coming back. Football wasn't coming back, and nobody really cared, is what I thought. And so I'm making all these attempts at suicide, and one day I'm like, I'm really gonna do it, going all the way. And so I got super drugged up, and I made this plan that there was this road, Broomfield, I think was the name of the road in Mount Pleasant. Excuse me. And then when you drive down this road, there's a bridge, and then there's a highway that's underneath the bridge. But on the right of the bridge, there's just kind of like this like clear green pasture. So you could literally just drive on the grass to the traffic that's underneath the bridge. So I was like, that's my route to out of this pain. And I get all drugged up, and I started driving 75 miles per hour down a 35-mile-per-hour road. I'm cranking up the music. I turned my phone on silent because I'm just in a rage, like, bye world, F the world, And I rode by this church that I had went to a few times, and there was something about riding past that church that was like, man, you're riding past your future. And then I just heard this thought come through my head of like, pick up your phone. And I look at my phone, it's my mother calling me. Still to this day, don't know how she knew that something was going on. I didn't talk to her before and let her know I was getting ready to do this or anything. I picked up the phone. I said, hello. My mom said, baby, I don't know what's going on. I'm worried about you. Will you please come see me? I'm in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, driving to go kill myself. My mother's in Detroit, which is about a 2.5-hour, 3-hour drive, depending on the traffic. It was something about her voice and her faith and her hope and her prayers that convinced me to drive there. It was the longest drive of my life. It felt like it was like 12 hours. The whole time I'm driving from Mount Pleasant to Detroit, I'm just wanting to veer into oncoming traffic. I'm listening to music. I turned on worship music, whatever I could find. I get to my mom's house. My mom's trying to talk some sense into me. It's not working. I'm just crying harder and harder and harder. Still trying to call my girlfriend. She won't answer. My mom tries to get me to eat because I hadn't ate in days, and she could see how sick and frail I looked. I was a 275-pound lineman, but I was trying to starve myself to death leading up to that. And I went from 275 pounds to 219 pounds in 4 weeks. So she sees I'm frail, and she's like, you got to eat something. When's the last time you ate? I was like, I ain't in days. She manages to help me get down some tomato soup or something. And I took like a couple sips, but I was so depressed. I just didn't want to eat. And that's another sign that you're depressed. If you never dealt with it, it's when your self-care goes out the window.
Terrible.
Yeah. And so when you stop, it's even like showering, shaving, so you start taking care of yourself, stop doing things you love. It's a clue that you're struggling with some depression there, And
I love to eat, and I wasn't hungry. I couldn't eat anything. I was up at 3 p.m. before I even put anything down. And so they first checked, gave me a colonoscopy and a endoscopy and tried to be like, is there something wrong with your digestive system? And he was like, no, I'm depressed. They didn't check that. But yeah, that's a terrible feeling.
Yeah. So, yeah, man. So I'm in the, so I'm like, okay, I'm just going to try to sleep. Maybe I wake up, feel better. My mom goes in the room, goes to bed, and I'm sitting there, man, and my mind's just racing. And I was like, I'm still in this pain. I should have just ended it. I hate myself that I didn't have the courage. I'm doing air quotes right now, that I didn't have the courage to really just keep going with it. And I picked up the phone. You're right. Faithful mothers do always know. And so I'm like, forget this, man. I'm going. I should have just finished what I started. I'm going to finish what I started. And I open up the door, and I'm trying to be quiet, and I'm trying to rush at the same time. And then I open up the main door, and then I open up the screen door. And when I left to go get in my car and start it up, the creak of the screen door closing, my mother, I must have heard her, and she woke up. And by the time I started the car, she had she's still in her nightgown, covering up her chest, and she bursts through the door. She hops on the hood of the car. And she's like, let me get you some help. And I could not hit reverse with my mom on the hood of the car. And so, you know, I don't know what happened, honestly. Somehow she convinced me. And next thing I know, we're riding in her car to go God who knows where. Um, and she pulls into the hospital. And at this point, I didn't know anything about like mental health, the psych unit. I didn't know like that stuff was stuff you saw in movies. I didn't think like these places like really exist. So she's taking me to the hospital, and I'm like, why are we at the hospital? And then the doctors like asking me all of these questions, like, hey, so why did you want to kill yourself? And tell me what was going on, and why did you do this? And it's just bringing up all this stuff that I don't want to deal with, and I'm just like, leave me alone. I just want to die. And so he leaves. He leaves the room, and then you know, I don't know if it's okay for me to share this faith part. That's all right with you. Yeah. So
that's why we're here.
Yeah. So he leaves.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So he leaves the room, and my mom's there. One of my sisters is there. My dad's there. And everybody's looking at me like, how in the world did we let this guy get here? And it's super heavy and depressing in the room. And there was this lady, I call her the woman with green pants. And the reason why I call her the woman with green pants is because I had been crying so long that my eyes were swollen, basically shut, and I could only see a little slit. And when she came in the room, I could just open enough to see that she had on green pants. And she comes in the room and she wraps me in her arms and she says, I don't know who you are. I don't even have jurisdiction to be back here in this part of the hospital, but God sent me back here to tell you that you need to say yes to him. And I'm like, what is that gonna do? You know, I'm agnostic. I don't, you know, I didn't believe in all that stuff and religion. And I'm like, man, you know, that's not gonna heal my back. That's not gonna bring my girlfriend back. And so she prayed for me. My mother said for like 10, 15 minutes, but it felt like 2 because the whole time I just kept screaming at her, like, get off me, leave me alone. I just want to die. She left the room and she said she was going to come back and check on me. Probably about 10, 15 minutes later, my grandmother, who had walked through the room, and she had heard that I was in there because when I got there, my mom had told her she had driven from about an hour and a half away from Jackson to Detroit, where I was at in the psychiatric unit. And so she burst through the door. She's out of breath. You can tell she was running through the hospital. She's like, baby, I've been praying for you all the way here. God told me, you know exactly what to do. You need to say yes to him. And it was the same command a second time from 2 different people who never talked to each other, didn't even know each other. And I couldn't deny that it was God's way of trying to reach me, show me his love. But my heart was so hard that I said, Grandma was supposed to say something like that. She was a church-going grandma. She was a religious person. And so I was just like, that's your God. Leave me alone. I just want to die. And at this time, my family just kind of backed away. My grandma prayed for me for about 5 minutes or so, and then she just backed away. You can feel the hopelessness in the room. I promise you, it was so depressing in that room. It felt like literal wet blankets were sitting on top of everybody. And I heard this still small voice, which I know now to be the voice of God, whisper to my heart and say, son, will you just say yes to me? And it was something about hearing his voice that gave me the strength to just try it and just mutter out a, yes, Lord. And the moment I said it, I promise you, the depression that I was under, it immediately left the room. My eyes actually got healed and I could open them and see again. And it felt so good. I didn't know what else to do. I just kept screaming, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, Lord. The doctor comes in the room because he hears this guy screaming in the psych unit, you know, and he bursts through the door. He's like, what's going on? You know, and I'm like, I was running from God and I just said yes to him. And he goes, send this crazy guy upstairs. True story. He didn't call me crazy, but he said, send this guy upstairs. And he said he admitted me to the upstairs psych unit, and they took me up there with the quickness. You know, this guy's going crazy. But that was it for me. Yeah. Thank you. It's a good story now. It hurt then.
Do you think there were signs of people of that like that happened beforehand? I mean, does it have to come to that? Could there have been signs beforehand, or I don't know.
I don't think I would do the work of that I'm
Yeah,
doing now. And you wouldn't be doing this if you didn't feel like you can make a preventative difference. So yeah, I do believe there's signs. I do believe there's things we can do to help stop people from getting to that point.
yeah,
Um, anytime when people not one of the signs, it's gonna sound real basic, but when people aren't acting like themselves,
yes.
I mean, it's one of the most basic signs. Like, man, what's something's off? You're not as happy. You're not as talkative. You're not as quiet. Like, I don't know. Like, however you're not the same you. And what's going on?
People ask
And
that all the
yeah,
time, but not when it's
they ask that, and then people respond and say, "Oh, nothing. I'm cool."
uh,
And then we go, "All right, cool." And it's like, no, you know something's off. Don't let them off the hook that easy. Pull them
or
aside. Say, man,
they ask you, how are you doing? And they don't really care. It's just, that's a pleasantry. That's a greeting.
I think that. So I use. So you're gonna think I'm crazy when I tell you this. I did an experiment for I don't know what was it, sweet, like 2 weeks. I did an experiment for like 2 weeks where I asked people, like, you know how people say, "Hey, how you doing?" And then I would literally say I'm doing terrible just to see what they would say.
Yeah,
And this was after like I had survived depression stuff. I was just like seeing like, do people really care? And so they would be like, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" I'd be like, "Man, I'm terrible, man," you know. And
yeah.
then like, and then I can't. The number of people who were like, "Oh, okay, yeah, man," didn't even hear what I said, weren't even listening, you know.
I answer
So
that question with, I'm tired, terrible. No
yeah.
one cares.
So I would say this, man. This is where I concluded. Okay, I don't think it's that people don't care. I think it's two things. I think number one, I think the world just moves too fast.
Yeah,
Because if I would have to stop this person and be like, "I need your help," I believe that they would respond differently. I believe deep in their heart they do care. The other thing I learned is that people, it's almost like people are have a hard enough time managing their own emotions,
mhm.
let alone dealing with somebody else's. So I don't think it's that they don't care. I think it's that they can't handle another thing. You know, it's kind of like this pandemic. Everybody's struggling. Well, not everybody, but there's people who are really getting hit hard right now and being stressed out by the pandemic. And it's like, I don't want to hear another problem, another thing, anything, you know? That's why alcohol consumption has went up during the pandemic, because I just want to get a break from this
She
stuff.
drank a lot less.
Yeah. And so, you know, and I remember there's been times in my marriage where, you know, because I still struggle with depression, that I've been going through having an episode of depression, and I'll, you know, try to share with my wife, and she's my wife. I'm thinking she's gonna like comfort me and all this stuff, and she just doesn't know what to do with it, because she's like, I can't relate. Like,
Yeah,
can't you just like switch it off? You know, like, it's like, no, it doesn't work that way, you know. And so I actually am not as angry as people as I used to be, and I think people really do care. I just think they're too busy, and I think they have enough time managing their own emotions.
yeah. I mean, that's probably it. So this literally eye-opening event in your life brings you to Second Chance. Let's talk a little bit about Second Chance and your book and what you
Yeah.
do.
Go get the book. Help me beat Tom Brady in rankings, please. And help spread the message of mental health and wellness and purpose and identity across the world. Um, so, oh God, how do I explain this? What's the best way for me to talk about this? All right, so here it is, right? So after I survived my suicide attempt, right, and I get out the psych unit, I I lived with this motto. Okay. One of the driving forces of my depression was that my future was going to be so unfulfilling because I peaked as an athlete. There's nothing greater than this life as an athlete that I had.
Mhm.
So me being a top sales rep is not going to be as fun or as lucrative. And so when I survived, I developed a different mindset. And I started to say, my best days are ahead. There has to be purpose for me beyond this sport. There has to be a relationship for me that's better than the relationship I lost. My future has to be better than my past, or else God would have just let me die. So my endeavor for the next 3 to 5 years of my life was to find out what my purpose was. I read every book, Viktor Frankl's what do you call it? Man's Search for Meaning, Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren, Simon Sinek's Why Stuff. I mean, anything that I could find that was on purpose and identity, I invested hundreds not hundreds of thousands, but I was going to say thousands of dollars into my personal development because I was all trying to figure out like what's my purpose, and I knew I had to get beyond surface level of like my purpose is to help other people discover their purpose. I'm like, everybody can say that. What's the unique reason why I'm here? So I finally got to this place where I'm like, I think this is it. And then I started to build speaking and business and become a pastor and do these things and build a successful and healthy life and a family. And I got to this place in my life where I would not trade my current life for an NFL contract, which was not the case previously. And I noticed that experience was not the same for a lot of athletes. So I would talk to some former players or whatever, and they would be like still bragging about football days or sports days as if it was the best days of their life. And here I am talking about my future. Like, look at all the stuff I'm getting ready to accomplish. And I said, there's something wrong here. Right. And I want to help them to actually become aware that they're still living their current life as if it's second best to their former life as an athlete. And so that began me like kind of sharing my mental health stories, starting to kind of share some things that I learned, starting to blog. In 2017, I started Second Chance Athletes as a blog site, then started to kind of get into like, well, let me do more speaking, coaching. Last year, we did like our first workshop in schools. And this year was the year we were going to like do all these workshops and go on this tour. Then the pandemic hit. And then we switched to virtual classes and courses and all that stuff. And anyway, so the vision of Second Chance Athletes is to give athletes a second chance to succeed in life without the demands of sports. Okay. Because as much as we like to say student athlete, it's athlete student. Yeah. and I was lucky enough and blessed enough that after I got out the psychiatric unit, I landed a job when I graduated at Central Michigan University. I always say it this way. I had the right degree when I graduated. I didn't have the right experience because I knew how to get by. I graduated like a 3.3 GPA, but I never applied myself and learned the experience that would help me be successful in the career. So because I work for university, I got to take classes for free. All I had to do was pay taxes. I actually, as a graduate, went back and retook undergraduate courses. One of the courses that I retook was public speaking because I knew that was in my future. Another course that I retook was creative writing because I knew that was in my future. And so I want to pay it forward and give people that same opportunity, whether they work for a university or not, to succeed in life without the demands of sports. Okay. So I looked at how did I go from point A of suicidal to point B of successful and mentally healthy and not want to trade my life. And I started to outline these phases that I went through. I had to accept, I had to believe, I had to discover, I had to pursue it, I had to persist. And I developed our athletes transition roadmap, which has been the foundation of our coaching practice. It is the core of the Who Am I After Sports book that's available on Amazon. And it is the process that we are going to use to help anyone in a season of transition to find their identity beyond what they lost, discover their highest purpose, and build their dreams.
Yeah, I think, they talk about preparing you for life after sports. You see those commercials like only, 10% or whatever that number is going to end up. And when you get into the NFL, they have that symposium and they're trying to, coach you and all that. But there needs to be more. So I think I think what you're doing is going to be great. And I think, the people have to want to do it also. It's, again, the help is there. There's so much help out there. There needs to be more help, don't get me wrong, but the people need to want it instead of just, listening to something and being like, okay, I'm going to dismiss this the same way I dismiss, any speaker that comes into my company that I'm on a sales conference or anything like that. So, you mentioned you have a TED Talk out there in the world. You got another one coming up this weekend.
Sunday, man, TEDx Dupree Park. You can look it up online, Darryll Stinson TEDx Dupree Park, or go to my website. Join my text community. I'm going to send out a notification to my text community when the talk goes live. I think it's Sunday at 5 or 4, 4:30 on Sunday, 4:05 on Sunday, and so the first TEDx talk, you should go watch it. It's called Overcoming Rejection. What to do when what to do when people hurt you and life isn't fair. So if you ever feel like people have hurt you or life isn't fair, or felt the sting of rejection, this talk will help you learn how to take moments of rejection and produce revenue out of them ultimately, but beauty, right? So my main thesis of that TEDx talk, because TEDx is all about ideas we're spreading. So my idea that I wanted to spread is that rejection is not our enemy; it's actually our friend, and that buried beneath our most painful moments of rejection is actually clues that we can use to build a profitable, more fulfilling life. So it's a pretty bold statement. So I tell people not to run from rejection, but actually to embrace it. And I give steps to how you do that. So it's a really interesting talk. It's got like 300 something thousand views on YouTube. So go watch it. And the next one that's coming out this weekend is called Purpose, a Remedy for Depression. And in this talk, I talk about this concept of my idea is this, that if we had a higher understanding of our purpose, we would struggle less with depression, because depression at its core is an attack on our purpose. So that's what this one is about. So you can watch that after it goes public and help share and spread the message and all that stuff when it goes public this weekend.
Meredith talks about the parents also struggling with, whether it's the kids or seeing their kid. I mean, I'm not a parent, but I understand seeing the people that I care about not getting to do what they want to do, and it hurts me. So I completely understand that. Yeah. Right on. Tell people, what can we do to help support what you're doing? Obviously, you said buy the book. What does Second Chance Athletes need the most?
Yes. So we are gratefully in the process of changing from an LLC to a 501c3 so that we can scale the impact that we're having from the exposure that we receive from the book. The best way you can support the movement is, number one, financially invest. You can go to secondchanceathletes.com, click the give button, and help us to make this shift so we can help more people. Number two, you can share with every athlete that you know. The book is a great resource for athletes. I mean, I've talked to a friend who actually he gave me an endorsement for the book because he's a friend and he was a former All-American running back. And I asked him, did he read the book? And he was like, oh, I haven't got to it yet. I plan on reading on Christmas break, when the kids aren't bothering me and stuff like that. And I was like, okay. He called me 2 or 3 days later and he's like, I just finished your book. And he's like, I started reading it and I couldn't put it down. He said, man, I'm 47 years old and it challenged me. I think there's still some stuff that I haven't processed from my athletic career. Yeah. And he said, so thank you. And he said, there's not one book on the market that touches the thing that you touch in this book. And so those are his words, not mine. And so I say that to say, if you care about athletes, go buy the team whole books. Like, it is the best gift for any athlete. And I wholeheartedly believe that, because we need to show them that we care about the person before the athlete. And this book does that. Yeah,
great. On Amazon, right?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. And if you want a signed copy, you actually can go to my page, DarrylStinson.com. And if you click my store, it'll take you to my Shopify. And then you'll see where you can order a signed copy of the book. It'll send me a notification. I'll sign it. I'll ship it to you myself.
Beautiful. So we got about 5 minutes left. We're going to ask you a couple of fun questions, and then we'll.
Yeah, let's lighten it up a bit, man. People in tears.
Who's playing you in the movie, the Darryll Stinson movie?
I want to play myself in my own movie.
I'm not gonna lie. Actor. What's the actor?
I don't want an actor to play myself. I want to play myself in my own movie. I hope that doesn't sound prideful, but I feel like nobody can portray me like me. And but when I die, if they want to, for whatever reason, tell my story after I die and after there's already a autobiography out, I don't know if there's any young actors that I like that look like me. I would pick like some old actor that probably would die. Like
they'll make them look like you. They're pretty good at that.
Yeah, that is true. I don't know, man. I think I would like for it to be somebody in my family.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but yeah, like I don't have a son. So it'd have to be like a cousin or something, but somebody in the fam.
Well, that's a movie I'll watch. Do you have a favorite movie or a favorite actor?
I do, and cool backstory, right? So I have two favorite movies in life, and you're gonna laugh at me because they're kind of embarrassing. One is The Great Debaters. Have you ever seen it?
No.
It has Denzel Washington in it. It's like it's got a little bit of social justice in it, but it's a cool movie. You should watch it.
I like anything with Denzel in it.
Yeah, it's a good movie. The second is Freedom Writers. You haven't seen that either, have you? See, that's why they're not like the most popular mainstream movies.
Hey, that's good.
Those are my two favorite movies. Now, here's what's cool. Okay, my TEDx talk, my first one, was filmed in a room where they filmed a scene of The Great Debaters.
Wow.
So it was super surreal for me to get filmed at Wiley College. So I don't know. That's just a little nerd fact. So yeah, that's my answer.
How about a food? You have to eat one food, and that's all you can eat for a year. What are you eating?
First thing that comes to mind is this hibachi place that they make me want hibachi now. I told my wife I wasn't getting hibachi today because I've been eating like every week, twice a week, and I'm trying to lose the weight that has helped me gain. But now I want hibachi.
You got one. It can't be a family member.
Okay.
One famous person, anyone living that you can hang out with for a day. Who is it, and what are you guys doing? You got 24 hours. Obviously, you're going to pick your brain, but what activity are you doing with them?
Well, let's see if you can catch my drift. My wife is in the room, so I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with
this isn't a hall pass. This is just,
No, I'm trying to think. So I get to hang out for a day?
Just a day. You're hanging out with a day. 24 hours. You get to talk with them, have meals, do an activity, golf with Tiger Woods, something like that.
I would choose Barack Obama.
Yeah, I think I would too.
Yeah. So
play basketball with him?
Nah, man. I would hang out with him and his wife, Like their family's interesting too.
24 hours.
Yeah.
Shoot hoops with Barack Obama.
No, I don't want to shoot hoops. He can't beat me, so it's like no point in that. I want to like pick his brain, like leverage his relationships, like do something that you only can do when you're with the president, like pee in public. Like I'm just kidding. That was a bad joke, but like I want to do something that you only can do with the president.
I think that he would be my choice too.
Yeah,
There are no bad choices here.
Yeah.
So here we go. Same here. It's okay not to be okay. This is actually how we got involved. I'm now a Same Here CEO. I shared my story as a Same Here everyday hero. If you need help, reach out to somebody, anyone, either one of us. There's someone out there who will help you, and it's okay. Let's share the story. That talks like this hopefully encourage other people to share their story or to seek help. I remember the first time I went and didn't want to tell people that, hey, I'm going to see someone, but it's just, that's life, right? We do what we need to do to be here tomorrow, to get through this. That's the same thing we're doing with COVID. Let's just get to the other side of this and everything's going to be okay. We'll figure out a way. We'll figure it out together. Frankie likes Denzel too. Everyone likes Denzel.
Denzel.
What's your favorite Denzel movie? I guess it's besides the Great
Debaters.
Great Debaters.
It's Great Debaters, man. Yeah. Like King Kong ain't got to know me.
Did you see Fences?
Yeah, I did see Fences. It was a good movie.
Love that movie. All right, one last time. DarryllStinson.com. Second Chance Athletes. Buy his book. Share the story. We're both very accessible. Any questions you have about either of our journeys or how we can help or anything we're doing, let us know. We have a couple more episodes next week of the Ticket Time Machine show. I appreciate you coming on. Always good to talk. Look forward to reading your book and listening into your TED Talk. And we'll chat again soon.
Absolutely.
Everyone have a great weekend. Happy Friday. Have a great weekend. Do something fun. Do something meaningful. And we'll see you next week.
Peace.
All right.